within minutes, was asked about Bryce Underwood. He's happy to talk about him, but he also mentioned that the competition is open. He said Bryce Underwood's not the starter. Nobody's the starter. We'll determine that in camp. Also mentioned Jake Garcia, the ECU transfer, who also spent time at Missouri, was a spot starter due to injury at University of Miami. In the past, was in J.J. McCarthy's class, has seen a lot of things. They brought him in because he's another capable guy, and it wasn't because anyone wasn't going to come back healthy. I think referring to people inferring that it was Mikey Keene's injury that kind of made them do that. But you have those two graduate guys. You have Jaden Davis, who took a lot of reps in the spring, and then there's Underwood. I mean, you and I believe it's going to be clear cut by the end of camp, but they're at least going to play this out as a true competition, which I think is probably fair and what they should do, given that Keene didn't have an opportunity in the spring. Jake Garcia wasn't here in the spring. Jaden Davis, he'll continue to get some reps. But at the end of the day, Underwood's going to win this thing, I think.
He is. And Jake Garcia get replaced by Caden Hauser last year, if I read correctly, which
yep.
And you know what? Maybe it was just a bad situation for him or something. He can throw the ball hard. He's got skills, but that's not what makes a great quarterback, as we saw with John O'Korn, right? So you got to have the intangibles. I do think it's Bryce Underwood. He said he was 230 pounds of muscle, and he said this kid. When I was talking to Max Bredesen, Michigan senior fullback, fifth-year senior fullback, he said, I see him out there and he's going through the playbook. Even if he doesn't have a receiver to throw to, he's going by himself, working on his footwork and where to go with the ball based on the playbook. He said there's nothing about him that's phony. He is a team guy all the way. For as much attention as he's gotten as a 17-year-old kid, I think that is about the highest praise you can give a kid, that he's still grounded, right? So very impressive and going to be fun to watch. I did ask Sharon, are you going to turn him loose with the legs? And what I expected Sharon to say was, we'll see, or something like that, like he did last year. And as Clay noted, he actually was very insightful this year. And he said, then you better have a second quarterback. Then you better have a number two, because this kid, if he gets hurt, you're going to need somebody to go down. And then he mentioned that he was the one that put the kibosh on J.J. McCarthy running more, because they didn't really have a number two. And he wasn't built like Bryce Underwood either. So if he gets hurt, you're screwed. But I thought that was a very interesting answer. Mikey Keene is still not 100%. He told us on our podcast on Monday. It seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? But it was just Monday. And he said, so with him and Davis Warren not being 100%, you got to be a little bit careful, especially if Underwood's the guy, which we both expect him to be. But I think there are times when you can, run him on the read option and just tell him, hey, you get your yardage, and if you got a hole there and then get down or something like that. But I think he's too valuable with his legs not to use him that way. But Sharon Moore, I think, is going to err on the side of caution. He made that pretty clear.
Yeah, and you and I talked about this as we were kind of walking back to our tables there after we talked to Sharon Moore. I mean, that was kind of the case. I remember J.J. McCarthy talking about when he was at Michigan, how he would always go to Sharon Moore and ask him to run more. And they did it some in the red zone. They did it some in some big spots, right? The national championship game, the Rose Bowl. I remember, when the Washington game got tight there, the national title game, someone in our game thread, which can sometimes, there aren't that insightful of comments. And then sometimes there are, but they said, oh, we'll use his legs like when it's necessary. It's like, it's a tight game in the national championship. It's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up having a big run. I don't remember if it was design one or not. It might not have been, but the Rose Bowl, the final drive there, he had a nice run along the sideline, got hit late, didn't get the call. Still not happy about that one.
Still pisses me off.
But here's the thing. Chip Lindsey's calling the plays this time. There's going to be a game where he dials them up a couple times, because it's not like they're not going to have these plays in their playbook. It's not like Sharon Moore is totally, axing this. And there are going to be some times when maybe it's the only thing working or one of the few things working, and they have to go back to it. And maybe on Sunday, Sharon will sit back, watch the film, and be like, hey, Chip, don't do this too much. But it may be the difference in a game. And that may be scrambling. That may be him extending plays and then keeping his eyes downfield and making a big throw as well on a key down that is going to help. That's part of his legs too, as we saw with JJ. I mean, off platform was one of his better things. But yeah, that part of his game is just it's so big, and Bryce wants to do it. Jordan Marshall thinks he's too soft to do it. He was joking on the pod on Monday, remember? But so that part's going to be interesting because if you don't use his legs too much, then you better have some really good weapons downfield that end up building a big chemistry with him. And the traditional run game better be pretty good, and that means the offensive line is going to have to be good because if you're going to push it downfield, you need time, and if you're going to run the ball well, you need the offensive line to create some of those holes.
I agree. Do you feel better about the offensive line after what you heard today?
I think I feel better about the competition that's going to ensue in the next month, just because it does seem like there are more guys maybe in the mix. Offensive linemen can fall out of the shuffle real quick, and then you don't hear about them for 2-3 years. But it feels like more of those guys are in the mix at least.
Yeah. It seems like they have more bodies and more real competition, and that makes me a little bit more excited for it.